Good afternoon. Welcome to the tea table. I have a very special young man that I want to introduce to you, and his name is Elijah Sandmeyer. Actually, his full name is Elijah Hans Christian Sandmeyer, and he just turned 13. And he's visiting from across the mountains. This is my grandson. Well, Elijah, how are you today?
I'm good.
And would you like a cup of tea?
Yes, please.
Would you like... I'm going to show you. Here is a nice, very special Ainsley cup I'm going to give Elijah. And we are having a Maud Earl Grey bulk tea today. And then, would you like a little?
Yes, please.
Okay. And I will have one. These are Ainsley cups. They are not a set. They are special teacups. How does that taste?
It tastes good.
Well, Elijah, do you have a good word for us today? What do you think of having tea parties? What do you think what comes to your mind?
I think it's a good thing to spread the word of God to those who don't have faith.
Beautiful. Could you say that again?
I think it's good because it spreads the word to those who do not have faith.
Thank you, Elijah. You know, when the pandemic came a year ago, Elijah and his brother Ezra came and spent a week with us. And we went out to lunch with some of my friends. And Elijah gave us the best word. Could you tell us about the light?
The light always follows the darkness.
Okay, say that a little louder.
The light always follows the darkness.
Is that wonderful? The light always follows the darkness. And it's true. It is darkest before the dawn. So, Elijah, you are studying many subjects. What is your favorite subject?
My favorite would be math.
Really? Whoa, that's wonderful. And you're also quite a historian, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
What is your favorite area of history?
The World War II.
You know, don't you think that those men out there, I remember reading a story about actually the Salvation Army invented what we know today as the old-fashioned donut. Have you heard that story? It's kind of a crumbled donut that didn't have to raise. And they brought it to the soldiers in World War I with a cup of coffee. And I'm sure they did the same in World War II. That would have been so good, wouldn't it? Well, Elijah, so you are now getting ready for summer? And you're going to do some good reading?
Mm-hmm.
What about World War II is the most fascinating to you?
The engineering.
The engineering. And what is the engineering?
About the study of how they made their vehicles and weapons.
Wow. So you are very interested in engineering and math and design. Well, Elijah, I thank you so much for having tea with me today. And would you like to give one more good word to all the wonderful people that come to my tea parties every week?
Please bless yourself and pray for us.
Beautiful. You know, that is really profound, Elijah. To bless yourself and receive God's blessing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And take care of yourself. Anything else to say?
No.
Elijah is our little wise man. He always has a good word. And I think that is a very good word. Thank you so much for sharing at the tea table.
You're welcome.
And we hope you can come again. What do you want to do this summer?
Nothing really.
Just relax and have fun in the sun. That's great. Well, what I wanted to talk about today was the fact that, well, I love yellow. I'm wearing yellow today, and I usually tell the people that what I'm wearing. And I have a hat that has a little straw, cream, and a little black. And I like the combination. And look what I found that goes with it perfectly. A little vintage purse that is also straw and black. And it's, to me, has a yellow tone, and I like that. Would you like me to open it for you, for my people that are watching? See, it has nice space. And we are listening right now to some lovely music, meditation from Thais. And we are having just a grand party. Elijah has been with me all week with his brother Ezra. And he's been doing a Zoom school because his parents have went out of town. They are all moving this summer, right? Mm-hmm. It's a big adventure. When I was exactly your age, my family moved to California. And it ended up only for a summer, but it was a real adventure, and I never forget it. It's really fun to go somewhere new in the summer. So, I think that the World War II era also is very fascinating in history. It's an era that generally we don't study much other than watching footage on TV, because in my education, we never got to World War II. We would go through all of American history and barely get to World War I, and school was over. And it may have been one day they would talk about, the war. But I've learned so much living in Europe, and it is a very important era. And would you want to turn that music down just a little bit for us? It seems to, it's an romantic adagios, and it goes very loud and then very soft. But I am so happy you've joined me today. And I wanted to talk about, are you going to stay with us for the talk? Okay, Elijah's back. I wanted to talk about another tea time that I had. And as we look back on our lives, I'm sure you're going to remember many tea times that you have had. And when I talked to you a couple podcasts back about the British Museum and going there to see the halls of Babylon and the Babylonian chamber, the Assyrian, the Rosetta Stone, with the historian, the gentleman, Mr. Findlay. Well, I had forgotten until later, but we also went upstairs where they had, in the British Museum, a lovely restaurant tea room. And it was very British, and not like the Lord's tea room, not fancy, but very, very adequate and very nice. And I wanted to put that in because all of these wonderful museums, at least in England, and the monasteries in Europe all seem to have restaurants attached, and they will have tea, and it's quite nice. And I got to go to a really exciting, Elijah, you would have liked this. My daughter Elizabeth and I were in Nottingham for a week, and we were taken to Nottingham Castle, which is thought to be Robin Hood's castle, and they had a lovely tea room that we had a lunch and a tea at. But in the Robin Hood castle, underneath are these huge caves, natural caves that are all in the earth. And they, right in World War II, they used these as the bombing, what do you call them? What the people?
Shelters.
The shelters, the bomb shelters. And so they have them set up now as a museum where they're set up like they would have been. And they really saved a lot of people's lives, you know.
Yes.
And then there is an inn there, and it's called, okay, I guess Elia is going. Well, you have a lovely time. Thank you for joining me, Elia. They have an old inn called On the Way to Jerusalem Inn. And Elia, if you hand me down there, there are placemats in where the bags are, right there behind you. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of, I have one that has the picture of that. I had meant to get it out. And no, not that. It's their placards, if you look. They are, and they're hard. They're like square. There's a whole stack of them there. And they are from England. And this On the Way to Jerusalem Inn is thought to be where Chaucer sat and actually began the Canterbury Tales. And it was where all the knights would go and on their way to Jerusalem. It's very, very old. It's Middle Ages. It's the oldest inn. And it is built into the cave area. It's like when you go in it, you're in a cave really underground, and it still functions. It still gives the dinners, and I noticed they had on there Sunday roast. England still has traditions. Sunday roast, and you know, isn't that, I almost every Sunday have a roast, and whoever is in town from my family or friends, everyone knows they're welcome to come to the Shoemakers for Sunday dinner. When we're home, we always have a roast and lots of extra, so there's more than enough for everyone. And that tradition came, you know, really from England, that Sunday was the day of rest. It was the Lord's Day. They went to church, and it was a real gift for working people to be able to have this day of with their family, and a day of quiet and rest and renewal, like a Selah I talked about, a tea party, Selah. And so on the placard there, it said Sunday roast. And another interesting thing in England, when we got to the town of Nottingham, we were in a smaller village nearby, but it had all these little villages in England, they have stores. They're on the street. They're not malls. They're actually street stores, which was so fun. A drugstore, a health food store. There was an open market. Well, when we arrived on a Saturday afternoon at 4:00, everything closed. And it closes for Sunday. It's all closed on Sunday. This was the exact same way in Austria, in the small towns. Now maybe Vienna is open, but on Saturday afternoon, 4:00, everything's shut down, and then everything's closed on Sunday. Everything's quiet. And even if people do not go to church, they dress up in Germany and Austria, and they go for a walk, and they have a formal dinner, and they have their family in. And actually in Austria, when we went, the cathedral was full. Many people still go to church, which was so wonderful to see families coming together and sitting and worshiping on Sunday. So that was, but this On the Way to Jerusalem pub, I will find it and I will show you next time the picture of it. And all throughout England, when they're called pubs, really what they were little restaurants. And they were the places originally where the carriages would stop and the horses would get their food, people would get their food and maybe spend the night and have rest and go on. And then as they progressed, now they are still places that are used for eating and refreshment. So it really was quite amazing to me how authentic the small towns of England still are. They're not overly commercialized. The people are very community oriented, and I found them warm and very proud and happy with their country and their town. And you know, in England, they call their yard, oh, a garden. And you'll go even to people that have very small yards because there's a higher population. They don't have often big yards like they have in America. They'll have a small yard. They go, oh, I'm going to the garden for tea. And you go to the garden, it's small, neatly kept, flowers growing, vegetables growing, maybe a fruit tree. They really appreciate every inch of land they have. And I think it's so important that we appreciate our gardens and our beauty and our nature and take good care of it and utilize it. Because, you know, when I grew up in a 1907 old Norwegian Scandinavian home in a Scandinavian neighborhood in Tacoma. And our family, my father had come to that same neighborhood when he was a boy, when he was 10, when his family immigrated from Norway. And we literally knew everyone, and everyone knew everyone. It was a beautiful hill, and it sat overlooking the Puyallup Valley, and on the top of the hill was the school. And then there was a little white church that had a bell that rang. And many people in the community would have their own church, maybe downtown Tacoma, or a larger church, their own denomination, but they all still supported and participated in community events at the little church. And one of my earliest childhood memories, because our house was only 4 houses from the school and the church when I was little, and my first memory is hearing church bells ringing. And I think it's the most lovely sound in all the world. And in Europe, you get a lot of church bells. You get a lot of church bells. And then when you're up in the mountains in Switzerland, you hear cowbells. And I love church bells and cowbells. And then smell that wonderful natural smell, the cedar smell. And so I felt like I wanted to just talk about very natural things that we have in our life that give us beauty and that give us inspiration. And I will talk to you on another podcast about a very special event when my daughter and I were in Nottingham, and we were at the end of the trip from her violin camp. And she was 15 at that time, and she said, the only thing I want to see is the Pride and Prejudice, Mr. Darcy, and, you know, Elizabeth and Anne. I want to see their country, and which is Derbyshire. Well, we didn't know where Derbyshire was. We hadn't looked on the map. And I thought, oh boy, I don't know how I'm going to make that happen for her, because we were spending a week with my friends from years ago in Nottingham. Well, the night we walk in, and I said, you know, my daughter loves Pride and Prejudice and all of the Jane Austen. She would love to see Derbyshire. Well, my friend said, oh my, Chatsworth House is just down the lane. And so the next day, they loaded us in the car. And honestly, I felt like we were Elizabeth and Anne going down the road. and going, Elizabeth and Jane, going down the road with the aunt and uncle in Pride and Prejudice. And they motored us down the lane, and here we came to Chatsworth House. And I want to tell you about that next time. But just for a little introduction, Chatsworth House is the largest manor house in all of England. It's absolutely amazing. And it is the house Jane Austen imagined when she had named the house Pemberley. Remember? Oh, Mr. Darcy's house, Pemberley? That's what she imagined when she, Chatsworth House. So we will talk about that next time. But I've had a very full week with my grandsons, and they've been Zooming their school, and they can't wait to get back across the mountains next week to go back to their real school. They're in person now, thank God. And we all know about these times we live in, and it makes us grateful, doesn't it? It makes us so grateful. I'm taking a history class, and my history class now is in person. And I went this week, and I said, I love in-person classes. But I haven't missed a beat because I've been able to be on Zoom. So these times have made us very grateful. And I want you to get your cup of tea, and please share it with someone else if you can. And I want to tell you that the word that I had been getting all week in my heart is be grateful. I wrote a little rhyme years ago. I was very young. I was probably not even 20. I started writing songs when I was a teenager. And this little line came. Gratefulness and giving, keys to abundant living. And you know, it's so true to be grateful. When you drive in the car, be grateful for the beauty you see. And be kind. And don't let yourself get in a rush so you're worried about other drivers not going fast enough. Try to think of them as people that are on their road, and keep your thoughts healthy, happy, good, positive, kind, and light. Then we stay up and we don't get we are not being drugged down. So that's my word. Gratefulness and giving, keys to abundant living. And as Elijah said, let God's faith fill your heart. The light always follows the darkness. Thank you so much for joining me today. And please enjoy your tea. Have a wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing you next time.